Alright, YouTube, today in news that must have Hillary Clinton shitting her depends, even though I don't necessarily agree with it on all levels. I'll have to explain that a little bit. The Supreme Court of Virginia has just ruled against the executive order that would have given 200,000 felons in the state voting rights. Now, I will say first and foremost, I do not believe that the Constitution gives the government, the federal or state government, the right to prevent a person from exercising their democratic capabilities, their right to vote, simply because they have been in prison. I do not believe that to be the case. That being said, the attempt by Governor Terry McAuliffe would have benefited Hillary Clinton and almost certainly given her the state if it had gone forward. The Supreme Court, though, of Virginia has now stepped in and said, no, you can't do this. This is unconstitutional. The governor can't do such a thing. And I said the same at the time. He can't do this by executive order. It's impossible to... It's like Obama's attempt at quasi-amnesty some time ago. I said, I don't care whether most of these illegal immigrants are naturalized. I just don't care. You're never going to get rid of half of them anyway without starting a literal military-run police state in every border state, going house to house and violating multiple constitutional amendments to get them all. As such, I'd rather just build the goddamn wall, streamline legal immigration, and then deport those that are caught over time by our criminal justice system. And I don't I don't care. Those that are already here, give them conditional residency. Make them pay a bunch of money over time. Do what you've got to do to make it actually, a net zero as far as how much you're spending. After that, just leave the issue alone. You do need the wall, but beyond that, mass deportation probably wouldn't work anyway. But Obama's executive attempt to institute such a plan, however well-meaning it may have been, was unconstitutional. I said at the time it was unconstitutional. Every goddamn Democrat in the country jumped down my throat and said, oh, well, it's fine, he can do this. The legislator, he's an executive. He's not the legislature. He's an executive. He doesn't have the ability to do that. It was clear it was unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court agreed with me. Like on the Virginia case, I don't have a problem with felons voting, and certainly not non-violent felons. I don't think anybody should have a problem with that. What the fuck? Who cares if somebody had half a pound of pot and so they got, busted for attempting to deal? Even if they're just, they just like to smoke pot a lot, so they had a large amount on them. It's a felony. Even here in Vermont, where it's been decriminalized, it'd still be a felony if it's more than an ounce. So let's say somebody has an ounce and a half of weed. They're not allowed to vote, but somebody who had like 1/2 gram under an ounce can. I fail to see the significant differentiation between these two classes of individuals. That which got a fine or a misdemeanor charge, and that which got the felony charge for fundamentally the same thing. So at least with non-violent felons, who gives a fuck? Do you honestly care? That being said, this hurts Hillary immensely. It comes from a court decision. It doesn't come from, a bunch of evil Republican legislatures trying to keep the felon voters down. These are felons, so presumably they're going to vote for their fellow felon, which is Hillary Clinton. It was fairly clear, yeah, indeed, a lot of these individuals, especially in Virginia, they're minorities. Well, they tend to be Hillary Clinton voters at much higher rates than the general population at large. So it would have benefited, it probably would have given her the state. Trump will now probably win the state of Virginia. This, by the way, is a much larger advantage than you may want to think in this upcoming election. The fact that these 200,000 people will not be on the voter rolls probably flips the election even if he stagnates. You've got to keep that in mind. So there's that. That being said, no, I don't have a problem with felons voting, but Terry McAuliffe is not the individual empowered to actually do such a thing. He doesn't have the constitutional authority to simply decide who can and cannot vote on a whim. He is attempting to legislate. It's like that Massachusetts gun control bullshit. They're simply trying to expand an existing law that's largely unenforced, well beyond its capacity. It will be ruled unconstitutional. And for the third time in the last goddamn year, when I post about this online, A bunch of leftists say, oh, of course it's constitutional, it's just fine. You're wrong. I'm sorry, but it will be ruled unconstitutional. Doesn't matter how blue the court is. They're going to find that it's an executive overreach by the governor. That's exactly what they're going to find. You can't do that. You can't take a law, radically transform it to the point where it is essentially new legislation as an executive. You just can't do it. It's unconstitutional. Did you people not even read the goddamn Constitution of the United States? Do you not know what it says? Do you not know what its content is? Do you not know about the separation of powers? Checks and balances? Do you not know that there are 3 branches of government? There's the legislative branch. Wow. The executive branch. Oh my God. Then there's the judiciary, the judicial branch. They're 3 different branches. They have different roles and different powers, and they have different limitations on their power. The executive branch cannot unilaterally make new laws, and that's essentially what they're attempting to do in all of these cases. It doesn't matter if I had one person on there respond to me with, well, it's necessary. Necessity does not grant power to a branch of government to overstep its boundaries. It's fairly simple. If you hate guns that much, if you think they're that evil, ask the legislature to act. And then beg the courts not to immediately decide it's unconstitutional, even though there's a great big chance that they will. So the felon voters will not be voting in this upcoming election, which is a significant handicap for Hillary Clinton in a state where, again, the polling appears to be about even. This would have tipped her well over the balance. It would have given her a significant, like 3 or 4 point advantage in the state of Virginia, because almost all of those felon voters would have been voting for Hillary Clinton, because they have this weird thing where they think that she's soft on crime. Oh, that's right. She's actually anything but, you see. It was her and her husband's tough on crime system that they put into place. Federal 3 strikes, tough on crime, broken windows laws. That's what they put into place. They got millions and millions of people imprisoned. Half of those felons are probably only in prison because of Bubba Bill Clinton. But they'll still vote for her. They're too dumb to know. A lot of people in this country that are sort of like Democratic partisan, they lean left at fiscal issues or whatever, they're too dumb to realize the Clintons were the ones that started half of that bullshit. The Clintons did it. It wasn't big evil W. Bush. Yeah, he was a moron. He wasn't the one that started. It wasn't Ronnie Reagan, the slightly Alzheimer's-ridden president. Sure as hell wasn't quietly spoken fucking peanut-loving Jimmy Carter. It wasn't Nixon. It wasn't LBJ. It wasn't any of these people. It wasn't Obama. It was Bubba Bill. It was Bubba Bill Clinton who oversaw the greatest time of criminality in our nation's history. Through the early and mid-90s, crime was at its peak in this country. It's way, way lower now. We're approaching now nifty 50s levels. We're already at early 60s levels. Sort of fine and dandy mid-atomic era levels. We're going back to like the Ike days in our violent crime now. No thanks to who's currently in charge, of course. Has to do with the expansion of the Second Amendment via McDonald versus Chicago, the overall growth of the economy, with a few exceptions, and perhaps better mental health services, although there's still quite a long way to go. Terry McAuliffe must be crying right now, because he's been slapped like a bitch by his judicial branch. And Hillary Clinton is saying, oh, well, we've got to put double the money into Virginia now. We wouldn't have had to campaign there before because we'd have 200,000 extra voters, or very nearly so. Now we've actually got to campaign there. We won't have time to go to Michigan. Trump will probably win the Rust Belt, which is probably, hate to say it, probably what's going to happen. She might still win Virginia, but it'd be a lot closer than it would have been if McAuliffe had had his way. And let's face it, the reason for him attempting this was to throw the state to Clinton. Quite obviously. That's the only reason that he doesn't care about actual felons. He doesn't care about, my democracy, my voting. Now, Democrats don't give a fuck about that unless it benefits them, any more than the Republicans really care unless it benefits them. They don't care. Neither of these parties really gives a fuck about your right to vote. They just don't give a fuck. But if he thought he could throw 200,000 people Clinton's way, damn well going to do it. That's about all. Peace out.